Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. And I have with me Professor David Aworawo, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos, and Yemi Adamolekun, Executive Director, Enough is Enough. Good to have you on the program. Happy New Year, Yemi.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Prof.
Thank you.
Well, before you joined me, we had three guests. First, we had Johnson Chukwu commenting on the budget, commenting on the ESCC, storming the premises and asking for the forex transactions of about 52 conglomerates or companies, if you like, in the last 10 years. And then also other issues within the economy about recapitalization of banks, about foreign exchange regime, and the fortunes of the Naira. And then, of course, we had Jake Epele, who commented on this emerging crisis in the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and the grant for vulnerable groups by the Nigerian government, or what they call the social investment program. And then finally, we try to look forward into the AFCON, African Cup of Nations, taking place in Côte d'Ivoire, beginning from 13th January to 11th February. Let me start with you, Professor Aworawo.
Yeah, we have spoken about the budget at some point when it was presented. Now that it has been signed and then the details are also there, we can also now speak more authoritatively on the budget. Some people think that the budget is not ambitious enough, but I disagree with them. I think the budget is sufficiently ambitious. There is no need just drawing up an ambitious budget that will not be realizable. I always feel that it is better to have the lesser evil that is realizable than the absolute good that is just in the air, that is just a will-o'-the-wisp. I think the contents of the budget are okay, except that I would have expected, more money allocated to education and health. I think that is low. But generally, I think the budget is okay. But usually, where the problem arises from has to do with implementation. We have had times where they say, 38% implementation, 40% success in implementing the budget and all that. When that is the case, it means that the budget is just budget estimate, achieving very little at the end of the day. So the level of implementation of the budget will be a major issue in, the success of the budget itself. Another important issue has to do with debt servicing. Somehow in 2005, former President Obasanjo sorted out our debts. Because at that time, I recall I was, those in government I used to interact with, that, the president always complained that about a quarter of the budget was used to service debts, and that was not right, and that such huge sums of money, put into infrastructure would transform several sectors of the Nigerian economy. And that was the propelling factor for trying to sort out the debt, which was achieved successfully. Unfortunately, we are now back in the debt trap. At that time, our external debt was $33 billion. It's now over $10 billion more. That is for the external. The internal ones to have expanded. If you look at the budget, about a third of the budget will be used to service debts, which is very concerning. It's worse now than it was in 2005, when the government took steps to ensure that the debts are sorted out so that there will be resources for development, for infrastructure. Moving forward, we have to look for a way to expand productivity, create wealth, and be less reliant on borrowing, so that our resources will not be frittered away into servicing debt when the principal is still there. The debt profile as we speak is not good, it's unsustainable. Something has to be done to ensure that that is also addressed the way it was addressed in the early 2000s. Whatever the government did at that time, we need to learn from it so that that can be addressed. Then, as far as the scandal in the Humanitarian Affairs Ministry is concerned, it is obvious. I mean, people always knew that something was wrong. You recall that there was a time shortly after COVID when reports were presented regarding some 300 and something billion, 400 billion spent on feeding school children who were not in school. You know, and people were raising, people raised alarm that where were the children fed when the schools were shut? And so, you know, the ministry claimed that it spent so much money feeding children who were not in school. You know, so people had always known that there was something wrong with that. And of course, now we can confirm why the poor remain poor. Because what is meant for them, the rich, you know, take it away to further enrich themselves, and the poor are abandoned. I've always said it. I do not know any, I'm very close to poor people. I do not know of one who has benefited from this so-called social investment program. So I agree entirely with Tepele that that ministry needs to be checked out. There needs to be forensic audit. And then to, you know, sketch out the way forward for that ministry. The way it is, they just say they spend so much money and you don't see anything anywhere. You don't know anybody who has ever benefited from it. And now we know why. Of course, it is still an allegation. But the comments back and forth, even from the, you know, accountant general, it's obvious that requests were made for money to be transferred to private account. When the minister herself had made comments earlier that one thing she would do is to ensure that monies are transferred directly to, you know, beneficiaries. So, I mean, what she has done now is antithetical to what she claimed she would do right from the beginning. And one would say that, well, I mean, to claim that, oh, I didn't know, I mean, will not make sense when one considers what she has said. So these are things that we must, this primitive accumulation, when will it stop? It also affects the budget. The extent to which the budget is successful will be determined by how honest, how transparent, how effective the budget is implemented. Then for AFCON, incidentally, the last time Nigeria won AFCON, I was in South Africa. Yes, I was in South Africa. I watched two matches were striking. The one between Nigeria and Cote d'Ivoire at Nesfruit. People were afraid. In fact, in my hotel room, people were already packing their things that this is the point at which we go home. But we went there that night, and it was a victory. We had 2-1, and then in the final against Burkina Faso, Nigeria won the cup. 5 countries are listed to be favorites. Morocco is there, Senegal is there, Egypt is there, Cote d'Ivoire is there, Nigeria is there. Others may spring surprises. Cameroon, you cannot wish them away. Ghana, you can also throw. So it should be exciting. People like to say a whole lot about Morocco. You only need one mistake and you are gone. In the last, the AFCON that Nigeria did well, Nigeria was the best in the group stages. But just one mistake in the quarterfinals, Nigeria was gone. So they should train well, they should be committed, and they should also pray for good fortune. We are looking forward to an exciting competition beginning from next weekend.
Yemi Adamolekun.
Right. It's a lot. I mean, the budget for me is very interesting because the budget of a nation or a state, we tend to focus a lot on federal. I saw there was a WhatsApp message circulating that had the different state budgets and what they were called. And some of those names, they're just like, are we really serious? Are we really, really serious? But your budget is like a policy document because you're basically saying that this is what we want to do and this is how much money we're allocating to it because this is where this particular ministry or project is in our priority as a nation. And a lot has been said about sort of the technicalities of the budget, the assumptions, the numbers. But I think for me, it's more the story that our budget tells and about what we prioritize as a nation and what we think is important. Budget is a civil society organization had done a letter to the president about 10 things to avoid. And when that was done and the budget was passed, they raised a number of issues. And one of the things they talked about was actually how much was allocated to renovation of the president and vice president's residencies. So about 30 billion, give or take, and another 10 billion to digitize where they would live. And this is in the same season where we're saying that things are hard, that the economy is going through a rough patch, we will get through it. But you decide that where you live deserves this amount of money, when there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, there's budget was recently renovated. Before he moved in, they spent money on it. So it just, for me, it's just the story that it tells, and if we're really paying attention to what this administration is telling us that is important to them. National Assembly increased their budget from about 200 billion to 340, and they include a library for 3 billion. I mean, I don't know that we see anybody in the National Assembly and reading is like what it is that is priority right now. The resources online. Why are we building a 3 billion naira library in 2023 when all you need is access to the internet and you can literally get what you need? And there's enough space in the National Assembly if you want to buy physical books to put books in. But building something for 3 billion, building a car park for 6 billion. And then lastly, Professor Aworawo's point about health and education. The challenges in our education system, we keep talking about it, but we keep doing nothing about it. And the challenges in our health sector, we keep talking about and we keep doing nothing about. And unfortunately, those two things also speak very critically to where a country is going. Because if you don't invest in the future, in the young people, education, what people are learning, what is in their heads is shaping their thought process, their worldview, you're basically setting the stage for these are the people that will lead Nigeria in 20, 30 years. And that's what we're breeding. And I don't think we really understand what we are setting ourselves up for as a people. And lastly, on health, same thing. Our doctors, our nurses are making their homes in different countries around the world. And our institutions, I think we talked about it sometime last year, Luth was closing down wards. Obafemi Awolowo University, Ife, was closing down wards because it just didn't have doctors to staff that. Now, so if we don't realize that as people get sick and they can't get care, and people are dying, both young and old, and the people are going to school and they're not, to exaggerate, learning anything, what does that say about a nation's future in 20, 30 years? So our budget, a policy document that tells a story, and we're not telling a story of vision. We're not telling a story of a people who are committed to building the people and by extension the nation. Is it surprising for this administration? For me, absolutely not. So we're where we are. For better edu, I think I'll start with the point that you made, which I think is really critical, for her saying that she was going to transfer the money directly to the beneficiaries to ensure that they get it. And also the second point that both you and J.K. Pele made, that you don't know anyone who's benefited from it. And we can see how it would be hard to know anyone. Bulk sum of money, transferred to someone's private bank account, the receipts for that or the retirement for that will be sheets of paper with people's names and some signature. There's no way to prove that anybody got this money. Now, this is in a country where trying to go cashless was a big deal at a point in time. Under Sanusi's central bank, I think is when we started it, trying to get Nigeria cashless. There are a lot of banking platforms, banking apps. People have phones that you don't need to have a smartphone to be able to do banking. Under Buhari's administration, at least I'll give credit to that, under Mrs. Uwais, there was the social protection program. They had built a database. It had been verified by 2 or 3 different civil society organizations that the process had a flow and you could track who was benefiting. And so Better Edu comes, and in 6 months we've blown, I don't know how much money. We've had elections in some of the states. I mean, I just saw another thing that she approved that's now circulating for her advanced team that went to Kogi for distribution. And as part of the reimbursement for the trip was tickets. Cost for tickets, 200,000 naira for everybody in her advanced team. I'm sorry, unless I missed...
Flight tickets.
Flight tickets, please, to be precise. Oh, sorry, in case that was missed by the audience. Flight tickets to Kogi.
Where there is no airport.
Where there's no airports, just to be clear. And I'm wondering, and not only that, of course, and then there's airport taxi to go with, and she approves that. And so they're dispersing 60 million. They spent 3 million on logistics to disperse the 60. And then her team alone, advanced team, spent 2.5 million, including airline tickets. Now, I think either you or J.K. Pele spoke about probe. This administration has shown, I mean, at least they started with trying to probe the program, is how we got here. And it would be nice to see them see it through. But as a reminder, we do have a minister that's doing NYSC. We have a Minister of Women Affairs every time she talks, she basically says a bunch of stuff that makes no sense. We have who else in our ministerial portfolio of people who are leading this country. So it'll be very interesting to see how Betta, who's approving a flight ticket for a state that does not have an airport, how she gets away with this. And then what was the last thing that we talked about?
Sports.
Yeah, I'll pass on that.
Okay, you are not interested in sports.
I don't know enough to say anything intelligent.
Anyway, fair enough. Well, earlier on I introduced this subject, which is about the Nigerian government expanding the suspension of degree accreditation to countries like Togo, Republic of Benin, now including Kenya and Uganda, following an investigative journalist report that many of these certificates, you can get them just within 6 weeks, in fact, or less, if the pay is right. Yeah. And people come into Nigeria with these certificates. They take part in the National Youth Service Corps, and with their fraudulent qualifications, many of these persons can rise to the top in Nigeria, in a country where to be anything, Politically, you don't even have to attend a secondary school.
No, you don't.
You
and
know,
if you do, you can fake it.
in the estimation of INEC, if you can speak English, or you can just say you attended one seminar once upon a time, you can be anything in Nigeria. Now, this is the most ridiculous part of it. Criminal conduct, fraudulent qualifications, and this has been going on for long. Although I understand Nigerian students in these countries also have their national associations of Nigerian students in those countries, and many of them have been kicking. Some of the universities have been saying where they are being blackmailed. But both of you are university people. Professor Aworawo, how did we get here? Where people can just buy certificates.
We got here.
Complete with transcript.
Yes. we got here because for a long time, the ministry has been in somnolence on this issue. I wasn't surprised. What is surprising to me is that it took this long, for government to take action. Yeah. Let me tell you a story. I have a younger colleague who was doing PhD, and then he started teaching. He moved across and started teaching there in Togo. Then they didn't pay him. Then he thought he would compare them to pay him by not submitting the scripts and results. He didn't submit the script, he didn't submit the results. When he returned there, he discovered that the students had graduated. They had given them any score they liked, and they had graduated. So it's a complete fraud. In addition to that, many of the schools are actually run by Nigerians. Not Togolese, not Beninois, not Togolese, they are run by Nigerians. They just, and interestingly, many of the students are sponsored by state governments in Nigeria, mostly states in the north. Why they will not sponsor their students to attend states, universities in their own state, to keep their resources within, only God knows. Why they think that they should go and sponsor students who say they are abroad in Togo and Benin Republic. But better late than never. We are happy that the government has taken action, suspended accreditation. We hope they will go further than that to ensure that we don't return to the status quo ante in the next couple of months. Because sometimes you just hear this noise here and there, after which everybody goes to sleep, and then the rot continues. We hope that the government, the minister will firmly pursue this matter to ensure that this desecration of the academic system does not continue.
But why should they? I mean, look, and I think for me, this is this thing, when we talk about these things on this show, is the fact that we talk about it as if we're speaking in a context where people actually care about thought and actually care about intellectual property. The president, one of the biggest things about the president of Nigeria at this moment is fraud. It's intellectual fraud. Let's be clear about that. Number one. Number two, it's not the first time, as you said, not the second time, not the third time, not the fourth time. Was it last year that we had Igbenedion telling students that they would need to take a pause before they could continue on their medical degree because they were not accredited? There are existing universities in Nigeria, and you know that, Professor Aworawo.
Yes.
Both first generation to whatever generation that don't have appropriate accreditation. But we continue it and we kind of keep quiet. Yes. This thing that happened, maybe it's because of the investigative piece and the bit of a hoopla. I can say, like I know my name, that there are people in NUC that know. Now, if students start coming from a foreign country with a foreign degree, it behooves on NUC to understand the lay of the land globally around what universities are there, how do your courses confer to what we're doing, who are have a sense that there is, like, we're speaking about something that we care about. So for me, all I'm trying to say, Professor, is that the foundation is that we don't care. The foundation is, as we are in Nigeria now, we don't care about intellectual thought, we don't care about scholarship, we don't care about academia. So if people can buy degrees, go to NYSC, and buying the degree is not just, what I first noticed actually for me from those countries were PhDs. And that tells you something. So we're talking about undergraduate students, but they started this, I think the public ones that I saw was people suddenly being awarded PhDs from universities in Benin. I'm like, first of all, it's a French-speaking country.
And they go about with they call themselves doctors.
They are honorary, I'm sorry, they're honorary but paid for, no, let's be honest. They're honorary but paid for in a way because you will make a donation to the school or something very funny like that. And then two, a university that doesn't have pedigree, that doesn't have scholar, who can you say has graduated from there, is a professor there, now wakes up from the blue, finds you in Nigeria, decides you are doing something they like, and gives you an honorary degree, and you don't have the presence of mind to actually interrogate the university and understand what does the university stand for. It was then that I realized that we were setting ourselves up, because the people that are getting the PhD are elite. The best of our best is who they are celebrating. So they fall for it and collect the PhD and call themselves doctors, as you said. Why are we not surprised that undergraduates are doing the same thing?
Yeah, but incidentally, the NUC has a list of universities not accredited. Some of them are quite good, though, but they are not accredited. Which is why I have been very surprised that these rickety universities
are accredited.
Oh, yes,
Exactly.
over the years. That's one. And then the internal ones. You know, there was a scandal in LASU recently of people slotting in names of those who never attended the university. And they were graduates. Yes, I know. I mean, they suspended. Yes, they suspended some high of. I mean, in fact, the matter is not even resolved yet. So NUC needs to also pay attention to all of this. The Togo, the Benin Republic, the Kenya, yes, that is fine. But those ones within, where these things are also happening, NUC has a responsibility to also pay attention.
Oh, before we go forward, though, and then the last one I wanted to mention. Sorry, Dr. Abate. Even our dear Beta Edu, her doctorate is from a what do they call it? A degree for higher university in India.
Is it doctorate or she's a medical doctor?
No,
She's a medical
I'm
doctor.
just
She's
saying. I'm not disputing.
She's a product of the university.
But you better stop your association.
No,
Let me land.
She's
Doctor.
a malabrist
I'm not
from
saying
the
she's
University
not.
of Calabar.
I'm not disputing that.
Does she have a PhD in addition to that?
Exactly.
Oh,
so she has a
okay.
medical degree.
Oh, okay.
So she's a doctor. She has a master's from a London School of Hygiene, if I'm not mistaken, and then has a PhD from a school in India that's been prescribed.
I don't have information on
I
that.
have. I'm sharing what I have. You can Google it after.
Well, no, but she's a malabrist.
I'm not saying. Did I
Properly trained medical doctor.
We're not seeing it. That's all I'm saying.
Anyway.
That's all I said.
Anyway, the question to ask is, what is involved is crime. Because when you present an academic qualification that you don't have, that's forgery. When you present a fake document, that's misrepresentation. Is there a way that the Nigerian government can track down all the persons who have used fake certificates to get to positions within the system and to also collect NYSC certificates? Can the NYSC go into its database and recall all the NYSC certificates that have been issued out to this
I don't think that is
persons with wrong qualification?
No. It's not even the possibility. It's very possible. But we're saying
Is
that...
it possible?
No, it's very possible. But we're saying at the highest level of government, we've seen it and nothing has happened. So why would they then do it to
Remember,
other
these are
citizens?
degrees bought,
Yeah.
not fake. They came from well-established institutions. They were just bought. It's just the process of acquiring it was fraudulent. So it's difficult to track. It's just that this journalist went and did all of that and then brought out what has been happening. They have the degree. It is genuine from a well-established university. It is just that the process of getting it is fraudulent. And so those guys know nothing, practically.
There's a court case that's...
all the people who go to these universities and you spend years trying to get the degree, they are giving you assignments, they are marking attendance, their exam day, they are pasting, they are looking at people who attended class, who did not attend class, and then you come out, you go into the same space with people who did nothing,
but
who got the same degree in 6 weeks.
In the real world, the weights are usually separated from the shaft. They can't defend themselves now. Can they come here and speak
But
as
if you
well?
go into politics, maybe not.
Ah, well, so...
And they become Nigerian leaders.
And there you go.
Anyway, let's take a final story, just one more. Human rights lawyer and senior advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, says that Nigerians have a constitutional right to bear firearms. Nigeria's Chief of Army Staff, Taoreed Lagbaja, has suggested there will be anarchy if Nigerians were allowed to carry firearms. But according to Falana, who made the comments during a television interview in the past week here in Lagos, he said, and I quote, "In the first place, it is not correct to say Nigerians have no right to bear arms, apart from the fact that the penal code applicable to the North and the criminal code applicable to the South recognizes the right to self-defense. We have to discuss the rights and proceed to examine the propriety. In other words, if someone aims a gun at me and I can quickly grab another gun, I have the right to shoot," unquote. In the meantime, some young persons in Kaduna State have been expressing their frustration at the rapid loss of security in the North.
Great Kagarko local government. Great Kagarko local government people. Great Kagarko local government people. On a sad note, we want to report to all Nigerians that from October till date, not less than 127 people have been kidnapped, particularly in Ida ward of Kagarko local government, Kaduna State. We want to tell Nigerians that why we are out here today is to make Mr. President know that enough is enough. We can no longer sleep in our houses. We can no longer have peace. Our communities are being ravaged. Our community today, some people are going to seek asylum. Some people are going out to go and sleep. Some people are sleeping in the bush. Some people can no longer have rest of mind. We are in a society today within our communities where kidnappers are serving us notice to come and kidnap and raid the community of all our food produce. What a shame. What we are hearing is in the afternoon, we get all the big men who are applying these holy routes that connect the northern Nigeria from Abuja.
Okay, the thing speaks for itself. This young person said they should be allowed to carry firearms to protect themselves. What Mr. Falano SAN had also said is that, yes, you have the right to bear arms, but you must apply for a license. You can't on your own go and get, a gun on your own, except under circumstances of self-defense, which is defense under under criminal law. You have a right to life under the Constitution, and you have a right to protect yourself when you are faced with a threat. But again, your response must be proportionate to the other part. But okay, what do you think, Yemi? Should we all carry firearms?
To be honest, I think the agitation to do so would only increase as insecurity increases. Because, the steps are there. From houses that didn't need fences, we've built fences, higher fences. Then we added barbed wire on top. Now we have electric fences in some areas. Then roads now have their own gates. So you are driving into a neighborhood and you meet a gate, then a gate, then a gate, because every road is erecting a gate with a security guard for security. People are hiring private security. People are hiring police to provide security. So I will not be surprised if people continue to agitate to that point, the need to do so. What will be interesting is what my concern would be is what the licensing process would look like. As with a lot of things in Nigeria that require government intervention, I'm not quite sure what the criteria to be able to get a license is, but will that criteria be upheld? Or people will find a way around it, and then we'll now have another set of problems because people who shouldn't have arms do. But let's not forget, actually, that Nigeria is also the home to the highest number of small arms in the West African region, sub-region. So there are already a lot of illegal arms in Nigeria. And then if we then layer it with the ability for people to bear arms legally, what that looks like is not pretty, but that Nigerians will be asking for that to protect themselves will not be surprising.
Well, Professor Aworawo?
Well, I don't think yes, I agree with Mr. Femi Falana-san that Nigerians have the right to bear arms. It's provided for different legal frameworks that provide for that. But I do not think that is the solution. I say this because when we look globally, when you look at the epidemic of killings, guns being used to just murder people in the United States, where people can just practically go and buy a gun as if they are buying a loaf of bread, compared with countries where there are regulations, Australia, United Kingdom, France, and other places, where such illegal use of guns to just kill people indiscriminately is a lot less.
You're talking about the access? Can people get it?
Yes, availability, the more people have access to guns has been established to be directly proportional to the ability to use that gun to kill as many people as possible.
Well, as we've seen in the United States.
Yes, yes. So when one looks at that, one will say even though there are legal provisions of bear arms, one can act in self-defense. That is not the ultimate solution to the crisis of insecurity we face.
I agree.
It is for the government to rise up to the occasion.
But the question, why it's coming up is that the government is not. That's
Yes.
what people are talking. That's why I said
Yes.
people will continue to talk
it's
about
like,
it.
It's like trying to solve a problem
By
and
creating
creating
another
another
one.
one.
Fair point.
So we go back to what ought to have been done, which is that government needs to rise up to the occasion.
So
We've been saying this for ages, you know, and because we have been applying the same, you know, tactic, we are having the same results. We need to. It is a huge problem because development is anchored on security.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Professor Aworawo. Thank you, Yemi Adamolekun. Good to have you back on the program. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati from our entire team here in Lagos. It's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching.